Released 50 years ago this week, the single Daydream Believer was the last #1 blast in the monkees' meteoric TV-driven chart career. The quartet's Stick-Top Your Brain hit, written by Jon Stewart and issued October 25, 1967 by Colgams Records, was the band's third chart-topping 45 and their fifth top 5 release in 14 months. During that time, the band logged 4 #1 albums. The first 2 of these, The Monkees and More of the Monkees, held the top slot in the U.S. for a staggering total of 31 consecutive weeks in 196,667, selling a total of 10 million copies. To make a comparison of magnitude, meet the Beatles, and the Beatles' second album had previously captured #1 back-to-back for a total of a mere 16 weeks in 1964. During this sliver of time, the Monkees reigned as America's biggest band, for which Daydream Believer served as the exclamation point, one of the most successful multimedia ventures in American pop history. They were, at least commercially, the stateside equivalent of their Liverpool rivals. But it's hard to imagine a pair of more dissimilar acts. After founding organically and slugging it out for years in dingy clubs in the UK and Europe, the Beatles finally rose to fame on the back of their own songs and their cheeky, distinctive personalities. On the other hand, the Monkees were formed quickly by a pair of canny independent TV producers in outright emulation of their English predecessors, prompting the dry sobriquet the Prefab Four, and were launched to the top by weekly network airtime and abrasive cannily penned tunes by diverse pro-songwriters. For nearly 2 years, the Monkees' formula worked spectacularly. Its major architects worked behind the cameras and away from the microphones. In 1965, the neophyte TV producers Bob Rafelson and Bert Schneider conceived an idea for a half-hour musical comedy series that would take its cues from the Beatles' high-spirited features A Hard Day's Night, and help the members of the struggling band to be featured on the show were recruited late that year. Englishman Davy Jones, who had secured a Tony nomination for his work as the Artful Dodger in Oliver and had shared the stage with the Beatles on the evening of their February 1964 debut on The Ed Sullivan Show, was already signed to a contract with Colpix Records. Mickey Dolenz was familiar to some TV viewers as the one-time star under the name Mickey Braddock of the 50s Saturday A.M. kids show Circus Boy. The other 2 performers, Michael Nesmith and Peter Torknay Thorkelson, were little-known vets of the New York folk music scene. A pilot for the series, bankrolled by Screen Gems, Columbia Pictures' TV arm, was shot in late 1965. The association with the company proved critical on the music side. It owned Alden Music, a publishing company helmed by Don Kirshner, which sported many of the top hit-making brill-building songwriters of the day. 2 of those cleffers, Tommy Boyce and Bobby Hart, authored the theme song for the Monkees, which was picked up by NBC and debuted in September 1966. The series was launched with the simultaneous release by Screen Gems record label Colgams, of a Boyce Hart single, Last Train to Clarksville, which vaulted to #1. The show was an instant success. Its vibrant songs featured weekly, visual energy, madcap humor and droll, self-referential style, pushed by its 4 stars winning personalities, captured teen audiences. For the network, Screen Gems and Colgams, it was a win-win. The music pushed the ratings, and the TV show pushed the records. Through the fall of 1967, the Monkees prevailed at the upper reaches of the charts with crisply tailored material, for the most part played in the studio not by the band but by seasoned Hollywood session men. While the Boyce Hart team supplied many of the songs on the band's albums, the biggest hits were crafted by members of Kirshner's writing stable. Neil Diamond, then laboring anonymously in New York's publishing labyrinth, authored both the band's second #1 single, I'm a Believer, and its #2 follow-up, A Little Bit Me, A Little Bit You. The subtle slice of social commentary Pleasant Valley Sunday, #3 in 1967, was penned by the veteran team of Jerry Goffin and Carole King. However, the crowning #1 achievement by the Monkees came in over the transom, and from a somewhat unlikely source. Jon Stewart had written Daydream Believer when he was still a member of the Kingston Trio, the popular urban folk group he had joined in 1961 as a replacement for co-founder Dave Guard. Like the Monkees, who took some shots as faux second-tier Beatles in some quarters, the Kingston Trio had been assailed as watered down and inauthentic by ardent folk enthusiasts. Stewart was beginning to explore a more personal side to his writing when the Kingston Trio disbanded in 1967. In a 2006 interview, he recalled that he envisioned Daydream Believer as part of a suburbia trilogy that focused on the growing distance in a couple's marriage. Its comparatively serious subject matter and its setting echoed Pleasant Valley Sunday. The song's oblique lyrics focused on the endgame of a comfy but increasingly distant relationship. The narrator is caught in mid-gaze before the bathroom mirror, reflecting on the quiet dissolution of his materialistic marriage, a union between a daydream believer and a homecoming queen, now curdled and as originally written funky, driven more by money than by romance. It was surprisingly mature subject matter for 60s pop consumption, but the tune's blissfully melodic, irresistible chorus screamed major hit potential, and overrode the vaguely sketched darkness at its narrative. The folk pop groups We5 and Spanky Our Gang had already passed on this song when Stewart was solicited for new material by the Monkees producer Chip Douglas during a party in Los Angeles' Laurel Canyon. Douglas ultimately said the band would cut the song only if the lyrics were altered, with the word funky replaced with the nonsensical happy. Stewart recalled that he replied, "Happy is looking real good to me right now." Sung by Davy Jones, Daydream Believer was cemented to the pinnacle of the U.S. chart for 4 weeks in late 1967 and early 1968. It was included on the Monkees' last Top 5 album, the number 3 entry The Birds, the Bees, the Monkees, alongside the band's final Top 5 single, a remake of the TV show's staple Valerie. With 2 seasons of contracted production completed in 1968, the Monkees went off the air. The act's swan song took place on the big screen with the dazzlingly postmodern feature film head. Though it failed at the box office, it launched the directorial career of its co-producer Bob Rafelson, who went on to helm such widely acclaimed dramas as 5 Easy Pieces and The Postman Always Rings Twice. The Monkees and Daydream Believer both went on to enjoy a decades-long afterlife, thanks to repeat airings of the original TV series on CBS and Nickelodeon and the band's sporadic reunions for new tours and recording, which continued, despite Jones' 2012 death, through last year's album Good Times for Stewart, who died in 2008 after a long and prolific solo career that included the number 5 1979 hit Gold. Daydream Believer was the gift that kept on giving. In 1986, a remixed version of the song reached the Hot 100, peaking at number 79. 2 years before his death, the songwriter said, "That song has paid the rent. That song has kept me alive."